Hello everybody and welcome to the May Roundup of the eShop Action Committee. I am Daan Koopman and with me is again John from NomComms.
Hello Daan and hello audience, how are you?
Why are you back here?
I was dragged here, Daan, and had no choice.
By who?
By you.
Oh. You have my permission to leave.
I think I'll stay just for now.
Alright, fine, let's talk about video games then. Sure, that works.
Yeah, that's a good segue.
So, like last month, we're just going to talk about some, well, the most interesting releases that came out this month. We're not going to talk about all of them. Naturally, there's less than last time because we covered, like, is it something crazy, like 6 weeks or something?
Yeah, last week was crazy.
Not last month, but...
Oh, last month, yes.
But now it's, like, just 4, so that's reasonable.
Indeed.
Most of the stuff is still for Nintendo Switch. There's a little bit of housekeeping on 3DS. And just something we chose as a throwaway on Wii U, because what else are we doing with that platform now?
For Wii U.
No, it's the only platform that doesn't matter right now.
I still love it. Still has my love.
Your undying attention.
Indeed.
Indeed. So, to begin with Nintendo Switch, I think the biggest release that came out in that last month is Minecraft Nintendo Switch Edition.
For sure. Minecraft is probably one of the biggest games of all time at the moment. And it being on Switch is going to do a lot for the system, and it's a pretty great version too. So, Daan, are you a Minecraft fan?
Yeah, somewhat, yeah.
See, I'm not really.
I mean, I can understand that you have to have a building mentality to even really get started with Minecraft, because that's mostly what you do. You build stuff and you collect stuff to build more stuff, and then that cycle continues. Yeah, if you're not really into that, then Minecraft will be a lost cause for sure on yourself. But for everybody else who is really into that, you can now do that with a max of 4 people on the television, and on the go you can do that together, and there's online, and there's a good amount of features there, and of course you have the Mario Mashup Pack, you have all the other DLC that's available, so it's a pretty up and running par version compared to the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. And the world size is somewhere between 360 and PS4. Actually, I think between Wii U and PS4. So it's a very large scaled version of Minecraft. And in all honesty, I think this is probably the best console version. The world's maybe a bit smaller than PS4, but it's so flexible. Like you can build on the road and come home and dock it in the TV and just continue playing.
Yeah, and then invite people over online to continue with your buildings.
Right, for sure.
So it's very versatile, and that's really what I like about it. And there's something nice about just working on that stuff on the go, playing creative or survival, just exploring a world, and just doing that on that handheld screen. It looks really nice.
Yeah, and if you're wondering why it's a bit more expensive than other versions, it's because they've included the Mario Mashup Pack in the price. So it is, like £5 more than 360 and PS4 and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just because the Mario Mashup Pack is in there, like on Wii U.
Mm-hmm. Well, with the Switch version, with the Wii U version, I think you had to buy it separately.
Oh, can you? Oh, wow.
At least that's what I recall about it. Not exactly sure about that, but I think it came way later.
Okay.
At least a couple of months later.
And we're getting a physical version of this at some point? I don't think there's a date for that yet. It's just eShop at the moment.
No, there's no specific date for it, honestly.
Cool.
I think there's nothing else really can say about Minecraft. It's Minecraft.
It's Minecraft, yeah. It's just a good version of Minecraft.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with Minecraft. Minecraft is a great game, but if you already played Minecraft, you know exactly what it is, and you might be interested in this. If you don't know what Minecraft is, or are not exactly into building, you are not gonna exactly care about this release?
I mean, I think I had the most fun with this version, but I still don't really care that much.
I mean, fair.
Yeah. I had fun playing it, but I'm unlikely to boot it up again unless it's for like someone who wants to test out the system on their own. It's not really for me.
Fair enough. Next up is Astro Duel Deluxe.
Yeah, interesting game. It's kind of like Asteroids, the classic Atari game, but right. I guess it's like Asteroids after it's had a few beers. It's a big party game. Yeah, I've enjoyed this game a lot. I didn't really know what to expect out of it, but it's like Asteroids with power-ups. Great little multiplayer game. Yeah,
it's a really fun multiplayer game. I don't really think anything else of it.
Yeah.
Like if you are mostly playing to have a solo experience, there's really nothing there for you.
There's nothing there for you. You can play with CPU and that's it.
Yeah, so you will have the most fun like playing with people on the couch and each giving them a Joy-Con and playing it that way.
Yeah, I'm preparing my review for this at the moment, and yeah, I just feel like there needs to be a bit more there for a single person, because there's no online, there's no kind of story mode or mission mode. It's literally just dogfights, which are either team-based or multi-person-based, and that's it. That's all you can do, really. It's fun if you have friends with you, but apart from that, it's kind of dull.
I mean, it's definitely not a bad game. I think that I really like that multiplayer aspect. There are enough maps, there are a lot of options there.
Yeah, I think that's 13.
You can't really argue with the price, to be honest. But it's just a really hard sell for somebody who wants to have a personal experience on the go.
Right, I think there's 13 maps, and yeah, it's a really good game. I think if you have friends with you, it's definitely worth it. If not, probably shouldn't touch it.
Yeah, that's how I exactly feel. Talking about games that don't have online multiplayer, NBA Playgrounds.
Oh no. Oh, so is multiplayer up on other versions yet? Or is it just Switch?
Yes, just Switch.
Aren't they giving Switch owners Shaq Fu as an apology?
That would be even worse.
I think I heard that. I think they actually are giving Switch owners the upcoming Shaq Fu games an apology for not having online.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't believe that, but okay.
You might have to fact check that, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere.
You can fact check if you want to, but it's not really a great game anyway.
No.
And I don't necessarily mean that like mean and upset. I had to buy this myself, by the way. I didn't get a code for it. So I'm not exactly like mean or mean-spirited about it. I had to buy it myself with my own money, and it was 20 euros. So I was like, fine, whatever. I will download this game and try it. And I sat there for like 4 or 5 hours, and my first impression was, this is really hard to control. There are very little nuances in this. Like, you need some time to get adjusted, and even when you do, you're not exactly having a lot of fun with it.
Mm-hmm. I was somewhat looking forward to this, because my favourite sports games are the ones that don't take themselves seriously. And yeah, this was just such a disappointment. There's not really much to it, to be honest. It's just an average, mediocre NBA game.
Yeah, but also one, again, that feels very convoluted in the way it controls and is designed. Even with I was playing with a friend of mine, and he plays definitely less video games than I do. And he was like, so how are you controlling this? How are you doing this? How are you doing that? And after a half hour, just gave up. But
that shouldn't be the case with a sports game. It should be accessible and simple. But yeah, that's just not this.
No, it's definitely not that. It feels that... and once both of you get it down, like most of the shots more rely on luck than skill.
Right.
So even then, when you do get it, it even doesn't become fun then. You don't have fun before, you don't have fun after. And it's... The most positive thing I can say about it is that it's passable.
Uh-huh. All I can really say is that it's good that a licensed NBA game is on the Switch. That's what it has going for it.
That's the only thing it really has going for it.
Just the namesake. I mean, if it had online, which it should do, and it is eventually at some point, it would be somewhat worthwhile, but it doesn't have that.
No, it doesn't. And, like real talk, I've been waiting for a month now to get the online working so that I can write a review for it for Nintendo Force magazine.
It's just not good enough.
And the deadline is this Friday for articles for the magazine, and the online has still not been released yet. So I will have to actually review this game without the online.
But there's not much you can do about that. It's just so disappointing.
Yeah, they said that it was coming really soon after launch, and it didn't really hold up that promise, if I'm being really honest.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Missed opportunity.
Yeah. The next one is Dark Witch music episode Redeemable.
Okay, so when I first saw this, the first thing it reminded me of was one of the Rhythm Heaven games. So I think it was a boss battle in Rhythm Heaven, and it was basically just a back and forth where you're trying to do damage to an opponent, which is pretty much what this game is. It's like a fighter mixed with a rhythm game.
Right.
And it is a lot of fun. I'd like to know what you think about it, though, as well, because I thought it was great.
I thought it was really fun. The one big problem I have with that game in particular is that some of the patterns aren't really fair.
Yes. Yeah, I agree there, too. Like, sometimes it feels like it's just going on it by its own beat at times. It's not really in rhythm with the soundtrack.
Yeah, but also, like, it tries to be something bigger that it's definitely not. Mm-hmm. At one point, you have already three beats coming at you with various different move tactics that you need to do, and then all of a sudden the game throws you a curve and throws another one just before the rest. And that's not exactly like a fair way to play a game. Like right. A good rhythm game gives you the time to anticipation and to act, and this game definitely doesn't do that.
I'll do some foreshadowing. There's definitely a better rhythm game this month on the Switch.
Well, yeah, for sure. But this is the more... I would say this is the more traditional one.
Mm-hmm. I like the style, too. The art was really nice. Good sprite work.
Well, yeah, the Dark Witch games, who were before on 3DS, are really known for that. They do some really nice stuff with those. But I think like the main problem with that game, it's just... It has a lack of focus when it comes to the rhythmic part of it. And I'm not necessarily saying it's bad, it feels a little misguided at a few certain places.
I agree. It's quite a solid price though. I think it's £6.99, which is on the lower side of the eShop.
Definitely is, absolutely, yeah. You were already mentioning this, but Thumper.
Yep, I absolutely adored Thumper. So I didn't play Thumper on PS4, because I don't have a PSVR headset. So I thought I'll just, I thought that's the way to experience the game, so I just didn't bother with it.
No, it doesn't really matter if you have a VR headset, but it's an option.
Yeah. So on the internet, I asked people about it, and they say, don't even bother without VR, because the game is VR. But then I played it on the Switch, and it's probably one of the best rhythm games I've ever played.
It definitely is, and I think that... having HD rumble in the Joy-Cons, you don't really feel it in the Pro Controller, but definitely in the Joy-Cons.
Mm-hmm.
And then combined with like the really solid gameplay and action, the speed it builds up, like the entire momentum of that game, like it's super intense and fancy, but it has substance to it.
I agree. I somewhat relate it to Bit Trip Runner in that it's a rhythm game that kind of... It's more of a game than it is just trying to match itself to music. Because it's not really songs that you want to listen to again and again. It's gameplay.
Well, with Bit Trip Runner, those songs I definitely want to listen to again, especially when they're remixed in a lovely fashion.
Right.
That is very different for me with Thumper, because Thumper, like, the track builds that music. And in Bit of Runner, it's a fast pattern that always stays the same, regardless of what you do, and it actually creates like a fancy tune. With Thumper, like the entire track makes that music into one piece, You can't really separate that from the game.
Yeah, I agree. Bit Trip Runner also has the advantage of having multiple environments, whereas Thumper is just kind of in a space plane. There's not really much going on to it, and I thought that might get a bit repetitive after a while, but it didn't really. It's just all part of the vibe.
Yeah, but you don't really have time to notice that either, to be really honest with you.
Yeah, you're so focused on everything else.
From the second level onward, I was just always focused on getting through the level, which was like really, really hard. Like this game is super hard, and some people might say it might have needed a bit more tutorial work, which I can totally see. It needed a bit of a better explanation, and the developer said it themselves that they felt that it kind of needed that. But outside of that, though, it's a really, really fun game.
It's tremendous. I think it gets to the point where you need headphones for this game. Like, when you get to like level 4, it's near impossible to match the beat without a pair of headphones.
Yeah, and luckily, even when you're at home, you can easily put a plug into your Nintendo Switch if you're sitting next to it like I do.
Mm-hmm.
Because for the record, I'm sitting next to my computer with a monitor here, so I can just plug a headphones in. So I usually do that, and it automatically transmits the audio to my headphones then if you plug it even to the dock.
Yeah, it's a good setup.
Yeah.
And also, playing in handheld mode is generally better latency than the majority of TVs and monitors.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So by default, this is probably one of the easiest ways to play Thumper.
Yeah, my monitor, I specifically have a gaming monitor.
Aha.
It has like 1 millisecond of delay.
Oh wow, that's good.
Like, you can easily get those now for like €160 these days, which is incredible.
Right.
Which is an extremely good price for 1080p monitor. It only has like maybe 2 HDMI ports and maybe one audio jack, but it does the job, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you also get some decent audio out of it, but I would say put your own audio in; it's 10 times better. But it gets the job done, and for that I can actually like perform a lot of good stuff with that. I am actually like putting like moves on point with that stuff, so it actually is really nice to have. And like a game like that excels on a monitor like that, because you really need to be on point. You really need to listen. You need to do this. You need to do that. There's a lot of things to take in with that type of game.
Yeah.
So having as little latency as possible is pretty much needed. But yeah, even in handheld mode, that's why I don't really see the difference between the two. But even in handheld mode too, I need to have headphones in just to make sure that I do it right.
I think an interesting thing about Thumper 2 is those extra fast reflexes are only really needed to get a great score, because you can boost past a lot of the environments. You can just sort of hold right before you need to, because there's certain like bumpers and rails around the stages, and to get a good score, you have to press right at just the right moment, but you can hold it before that.
Sure, yeah.
So there's like a risk-reward kind of thing there. And it's also probably the best example of a PlayStation 4 port on the Switch. So very few compromises here.
Yeah, when we talked in that interview, they said they needed to make some compromises, but they're very minimal.
It's a very clean-looking game too. I couldn't notice any jaggies at all.
Yeah, their intention was also like 60 frames per second, so it makes total sense.
Yeah, for sure. I think they got rid of things like was it motion blur and some other bits like that, but you can't really notice in the heat of the action because you're so enthralled by the game itself.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. Is there anything else to say about that game? Not really.
Just buy it. Buy it is what I'll say.
Yeah, it's likely the best game that came out this month on Nintendo systems. And that's saying something because Ultra Street Fighter 2. Oh,
I actually put quite a lot of hours into Ultra Street Fighter 2. It's a good game, but it's a good game with. It's not worthy of a re-release, but it's still a good game. It's still Street Fighter 2.
I just hate Way of the Hado that much.
I've just forgotten about Way of the Haddo. There's nothing to it.
I hate it with a burning passion.
It just sits on the menu and I don't touch it anymore.
I don't know. It's definitely not worth it though. This on the other hand, totally worth it. Next up is a Japanese-only title, which is Battle Swordsmith Kuro, which is coming out this summer in Europe and North America. It will be then published by Nintendo. In Japan, it's published by its own developer, which is Overfence. It's a multiplayer game in which you try to flip panels with a bot stomp and score points that way. And if they are in your range, like your opponents are, you throw them off the map that way. There are 3 different modes. There is panel battle, where you just flip over the panels and score the most points that way. There is live battle, where you have to be tactical and be snarky and throw them off the map that way. And then there's just KO battle, where you can just have a gigantic free-for-all and score as many KOs and throw them off the map as much as you can. There's a solid variety there. I do really like it. The big problem is that a lot of the stuff in the menus is still have the coming soon moniker. Even the amount of maps you have is only 3, so it's not really all that fantastic. Like, the gimmicks feel very separated from one another. There's not a really coherent package there yet. I mean, in the gameplay principles, it's super fun, but just the stuff around it makes me really concerned right now, despite me liking like a bunch of elements of this game. And I mean, it has local multiplayer, it has online, but in online multiplayer, you don't have the option to play with friends or in ranked battles. You can only play with randoms. And once again, if you're playing locally, you only have like 3 maps, so the amount of replay value that you currently have is not all that much.
I think there's also a thing with Fast RMX, where it launched without a play with friends option, but it was later patched back in. Do you think this is going to get that later on?
Oh yeah, all of that stuff still has a coming soon moniker, just like I said. So it's definitely coming in an update. Like, even the option to play locally Switch versus Switch, like one-on-one, easy with Nintendo Switch, isn't even there yet. Like, right. that is still marked as coming soon.
That's quite a big thing not to have.
Yeah.
So the actual game itself is kind of like Bomberman, would you say?
Yeah, it's Bomberman with panels instead of bombs. And that's A-okay. The better thing about it is that you also have like a large range of items, which, just like Bomberman, just pick up and use. Like, there's an item that can like better your range. There's invincibility item that you pick up. There's just a whole bunch of variables there that make those matches interesting. But just the content itself is the bigger problem. Like, not the gameplay. The gameplay is actually like really entertaining, but everything around it stops it right in its tracks.
Right. Yes, that's the thing. So there's so many games that are good and they're fun, but they're really difficult to review because you know they're lacking content and lacking substance. Like, even things like NBA Playgrounds, that game, while maybe it's not great, if it had online, it would definitely, lift it up to being a better game. Whereas I think that's the same thing here too. Like, it just has potential that it's not tapping. Yeah.
Well, more so than NBA Playgrounds, because NBA Playgrounds was also not really a great game to begin with.
Right.
Here, it's that gameplay can be a really entertaining, like, multiplayer package if, like, more maps were there, if, like, all the options were there, just having the option to play with friends or versus one with Nintendo Switches. But currently, right now, it's just lacking stuff that should be there.
It's kind of baffling to not have the Switch versus Switch mode. That's a huge part of the system.
Right, yeah.
Well, hopefully all that stuff is there when it comes overseas.
We don't know when exactly, but we only can hope.
Fingers crossed.
Yep. Next up on the list is Blaster Master Zero EX. And the character Convolt and Akoro. They released DLC for that adds to that game integrates other properties.
Yeah, I'm pretty thrilled by this. Like, more Blaster Master Zero is a good thing for me. This is honestly one of the best surprises of the Switch, this game.
Yes, it definitely is, yeah.
Yeah, like, I didn't expect it to be as good as it is, because Blaster Master sequels generally haven't been very good.
Well, they haven't been good since the Game Boy Color. Like,
exactly.
the one for the Game Boy Color was actually, like, really entertaining. But everything that came after that on the PlayStation and WiiWare and what have you weren't all that great.
Mm-hmm.
But now Intercreates is back just adding their own properties like they do with every single game that they release.
Yeah. I love they're doing that. That's a great thing to do, because all the properties are good, and they're doing it more this month too. Like, this isn't the only Gunvolt game that we're receiving soon. We're getting 2 Gunvolt games. We're getting a collection, and we're getting, is it Mighty Gunvolt
Burst?
Yeah. That's it.
What do you want? What do you want? Galgun on the Switch. That's more important.
Exactly.
But I can jokingly say that, but Ikora from Galgun is a really interesting character to play. Mm-hmm. Because she's the newest. She came out last week. What I think is interesting about her specifically is that you can fly when you're out of the mech over certain obstacles. You can hold the fly button and avoid enemies that way, which is super nice. Also, her missile replacement instead of the missile that the main character has. She shoots a ball of energy that instantly redirects to her closest opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really helpful. Like, if you are not really good with diagonals in that game, which I can totally understand, not everybody has a similar skill level, that can be a huge help.
For sure.
Especially to get through that game. The character is currently free for a couple of weeks, so be sure to redeem before the end of the month. I think the free period for Gunvolt has already expired.
I think you're right there, yeah.
But he's still worth it. He has, for example, in his options, he has a wall jump.
Right, yeah. See, the thing is, I think Blaster Master Zero, as great as it is, I'm unlikely to play through that game from beginning to end, just as it is, as the Sophia. But adding these characters really does change the game and makes them something that's worth replaying.
Yeah, and both of them add some really cool visual effects to that game that weren't present before. Like, with the electricity attack that Gunvolt uses and the heart attack that Ikoro does, you get some really nice elements on the screen when they do their attack successfully, be it in the mech or outside of them.
Yes, beautiful.
Definitely worth it, even if you're not really looking forward to playing that game through whole again. Just play it for an hour of each character and you're good too, because their playstyles are super fun to see.
Without a doubt.
Finally, on Switch, there are naturally the next slew of ACA Neo Geo games, because hey, we don't have a virtual console yet.
Next best thing.
There are Neo Geo Guru, Mark of the Wolves. Guru is a fantastic fighting game, which you absolutely should play, if you haven't. There is a lot of variables there. It is the best of them all. There is also a really interesting combo system that I don't think has ever been replicated again in a Neo Geo game, so check that out. The other two fighters I am less keen on. King of Fighters 99 is not as good as 98. We'll say that. Neo Geo Galaxy Fight Universal Warriors is just a really odd game. Like, a really odd game. I don't necessarily like the characters. It feels a bit funky to control. If you get used to it, it's fine. It's just not my favorite fighting game on the Neo Geo.
Mm-hmm.
Finally is a side-scrolling shooter of our shmup, and that is Last Resort. Last Resort sees you controlling a ship, who can also drag along a droid, and each of them has their own attacking patterns. Your ship can do some really interesting attacks. There are lasers, there are bullets, what have you, and depending on what you pick up along the road, you will switch between them and make yourself stronger or decrease your attack power. It is a way more tactical game than you would think, especially in how they present their attack patterns, but that makes it also a lot of fun to play through.
Mark of the Wolves, I've heard so many good things about. Like, some people say it's one of the best fighters ever.
Oh, I believe that for sure.
And it's only, what, are these $5.99, all of these?
Yeah, I think that and Last Resort are the two that were worth it this month.
For sure.
Like, I will say it again, Last Resort is a super deliberate shmup game. Not like you see them now. Most of them are more simplified in that way and have attack patterns that you can really easily understand. This one feels very deliberate in that way, which I really, really like. So there you go.
There we are.
That was Nintendo Switch. Next up on 3DS, there are two games. First of all, let's talk about Drancia Saga.
Okay. So this is from the same team who made Kaneko on Nintendo Switch.
Yes, and Faerun and what have you on 3DS. Yeah, they made a whole bunch of games.
I think you can just tell just by looking at it. It carries over that same beautiful sprite-based style.
Yeah, the sprite work in every single game that they are making is really good.
Excellent, yeah.
This game is very different from all of their other games, though. Because with Faerun and with Kamiko and what have you, it's more always an over-the-top view and an experience that feels very Zelda-ish in some ways. This one is a side-scrolling game in which you attack by just simply walking forward and bumping into opponents. And you have to do that very precisely with different types of attacks and attack power, different types of HP, and special attacks that you can earn like mileage for along the way. It's a very simplified game. It's more meant as an arcade game, which is a really interesting approach, especially from those people, because Skipmore, again, mostly flourishes when they make those overhead style games.
Right.
But I did really like it. And the fun part is it actually also unlocks characters depending on which games you also own on 3DS. If you own... what's that game with the cowboy again on 3DS eShop?
Gum and Clive?
Gum and Clive, yes.
Ah.
You actually unlock that character. The gnomes of Fast for Gnomes are also a character for some reason. And also the characters from Skipmore's other 3DS games are characters in this game. Each of them has also a stage that is modeled after their games.
That's awesome.
And also of them have their own specific attack patterns. They're actually really interesting and fun to use.
So it rewards you for your dedication to all their other projects in the 3DS eShop by the sounds of it.
Yes, it does. Yeah, absolutely. It's just a really little neat arcadey style game. It doesn't go exactly deeper than that, but I'm quite addicted to it. When I am playing it on the go, I usually play it a round or three and then put it down and play something else.
And like all of Skipmore's games, it's really cheap too, only $4.99.
Yes, it is in line with Skipmore's other games. Again, if you're expecting like an overhead adventure again from them, don't go in and expect that, because it feels very separated from that. But that being said, it's a fun arcade style game. So there you go. The last game, because I only have two games on 3DS here, the last game on 3DS is Mononoke Forest. I don't think you have heard about this game, right?
I am pretty in the dark about this.
Alright. So Mononoke Forest takes place in a world that's very drab and doesn't really have a lot of life going for it, like plant-wise. Mm-hmm. You're playing as these creatures called Mononokes, who have to make the land flourish by giving them a pinch on the touchscreen, just flipping them on the upper screen, and they will like replant like a certain section of the map, or they will let grass grow, do other stuff, make the land clean. You have to do all of these separate tasks, and collecting different Mononokes who can do different tasks, and completing quests for the village people who can see you but just to interact with them in some way or another, just to go for a bigger goal of saving like your grand leader who has somehow been destroyed at the beginning of the game, but you are searching for him like very desperately. The little creatures are really charming. The gameplay is a one-trick pony that it's very novel. It's good for a 3DS game, but I wouldn't be playing it longer than like 15-minute bursts at a time.
Right. But for the price and for the portable form factor, that sounds pretty much perfect.
Yeah, it's a really neat game. The variables are really interesting. There's a lot of fun stuff going for it. It's just that I wouldn't say that you would get a lot of mileage if you're looking for a chunkier portable experience than this.
Right.
But like again, I do kind of like it, and again, everything is charming about it. There seems to be like they've put some real effort in there in the presentation and how everything looks. But don't expect like the gameplay to be deeper. It kind of asks you to go on the deep end and do some searching around the environments your own way and try to clean up the environment on your own. It doesn't really give you those instructions, but you kind of need to know and kind of like take that in account yourself. But once you get the hang of it, it becomes neat. And like once again, I feel that developers put some time in and money behind this. It's just that the gameplay might not be for everyone.
Oh, right. I guess not every game has to have the depth of an ocean. As long as it's just like a fun pick up and play game, then that's all it needs to be.
Sure, yeah. And the narrative is quite good. So, yeah, check it out if you want to. I do feel that some people will get some fun out of it. Lastly, on Wii U, because there was nothing else on Wii U, and we needed something to discuss about Wii U. Darksiders War Mastered Edition.
Yes. So I've played Darksiders, not on Wii U, but I am experienced with the original 360 version. And for years, I was put off Darksiders because people just kind of said like, "Oh, it's Zelda for adults," and that really bothered me. Yeah, but I eventually played it. It's a fun game. It's a good game. Whether it's worthy of a remaster now, I'm not so sure. Because I think it's just kind of is good. I'm not sure I'd give it much more than that. How do you feel about Darksiders?
I mean, I really like it as a game. It's a really dark and interesting story, especially with the characters you meet, what exactly you do in that world, and trying to figuring out on your own.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if like the Wii U version is the way to play, to be honest. And it's not that expensive. It's like €20. Don't know how much
That's not bad at all.
I don't know how much the pound version. I'm sorry about that, but it's yeah. There's a lot of things to do. There's a good sense of character progression. There's a fun arsenal with tons of weapons to play. And the worlds and the characters you meet once again are super, super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But my problem is with the Wii U version, and I have the box in my hand here. That's why I walked off for a second. Now with hellish HD resolution and 60 frames per second. Like this box lies to you. Like it's not on 60 frames per second. Not even close. I think it's 30.
Wait, it's locked at 30, do you think?
It's at 30. It's not at 60.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, Darksiders 2 was on Wii U fairly close to launch, I think. So, you know,
it was a launch title.
Oh, right, wow. So if you're dedicated to Darksiders on Wii U, you know, you have both of them here now.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels a little bit on the late side, but I guess that's fair enough. Also, for some reason, it has the old rating of the UK. What is it again?
What's it called? I can't even remember now. It's been so long. That's how long it's been.
BBLC or something?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, it has a BBLC rating of 15. Doesn't even have a PEGI rating.
This game's just lost in time. I mean, it's definitely not a bad game. It's a great game. I think it's better than Darksiders 2, in fact.
Oh yeah, I think as a game, it's better than the second Darksiders. As a Wii U game, I would say rather buy another version of this.
Yeah, it's just a weird game that comes out now, and it's definitely a good game.
Oh
and
yeah.
if you still want to build up your Wii U collection, this is something.
And it's relatively inexpensive too. Like I cannot really knock the price for it.
Right.
For a boxed game that's super cheap.
I mean, it is interesting that we're still getting Wii U games, and this is a good one.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if you have options, I would give it a knock against it. If you don't, then it's worth it, I suppose.
Oh, how's the gamepad integration?
It's pretty much non-existent. You can play it off TV.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too great then.
I mean, you can also play just with the regular Pro Controller if you really want to.
Yeah, it is a weird choice to put on Wii U, but saying that, if they released it on Switch, I'd probably buy it.
I mean, they said they are open to the idea, they just haven't figured it out, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Maybe they're also releasing Darksiders 2 on Switch, you never know.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, both games are pretty meaty single-player adventures, so if you want something along those lines, this is definitely worth it.
Yeah. Right now, it's just a Wii U title. It's fine. I mean, I don't necessarily have something super negative to say on it. The adventure is great, the characters are fantastic, but I don't think it just came at a very wrong time. Nobody really cares about this anymore.
That's it. That's all there is to say. It's just why is this releasing now?
Yeah. And once again, it also says 60 FPS, which is
a lie.
Clean and simple. That was about all the games we had to talk about, but considering we have about, I would say, 10 minutes, let's talk about ARMS a bit. Let's end with something fun, because ARMS, when you're listening to this, and this is very critical, the review embargo for ARMS will be over. And I will have had ARMS for a week and a half. And
for some.
Yeah, my thoughts are that game is absolutely fantastic. I love ARMS to death. And I don't think that necessarily everybody will agree. And I'm fine with that, you know. You might think that you don't really feel the style or the gameplay or everything else, and you might find some of the modes dull. That's okay. That's totally understandable. As far as myself is concerned, I don't think I had as fun as on Switch as this one so far. And
wow,
and
that's quite a statement.
Zelda is on that same level to me. But this is the second game that got me real riled up and invested in playing my Nintendo Switch.
I think this is the first Nintendo-developed Switch game that feels like a Switch game. Because, Zelda was made with the Wii U in mind. Mm-hmm. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Yeah, you could really call this the first real original title for Nintendo Switch by Nintendo.
Yeah.
And it shows, the way they use those Joy-Con, the motion controls are really well designed.
Extremely well.
And you played through the test bunch, and we'll get to your thoughts in a second of those times. But honestly, what I find most engaging about using those Joy-Con is that you could really feel the motions that you're doing. And it actually gave me quite a workout while doing it. And everything about the buttons felt right, moving your punch with both of the Joy-Cons, just moving them around. L button, R button with dash and jumping. ZL, ZR so you can do the rush. And just moving around the playing field and just performing well that way.
And it takes me back almost to Wii Sports. And I'm not making a comparison with it in Wii Sports, but when people first played tennis, they would, move their arm and actually hitting a tennis ball with great exaggeration. That's kind of how I played ARMS to start with. And it does give you a workout. The next day, my arms hurt. They were sore. It's totally worth it, though. I think the motion controls are probably the most fun way to play ARMS. It's still perfectly playable with a Pro Controller. And in fact, it's probably easier with a Pro Controller, in my opinion. But it's way more fun with motion controls. And it just feels so natural.
Yeah. That's why I personally disagree. And I will say that I didn't like using the buttons one bit. And that's maybe a snarky way to say it. But it's kind of true, the layout of all those controls aren't exactly my way to play. You can still use the triggers to do the punches, but like jumping and dashing on X and Y doesn't feel as nice. Blocking,
I agree. I think it feels more natural to use motion controls.
Blocking with pushing in the left stick, it doesn't feel okay.
Yeah, it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't at all. It's just so weird. It's a weird placement because that's how you move, and clicking that down isn't an instant reflex. Whereas just putting your hands together for guarding is. Yeah,
I just feel that everything with the motion controls feels more instant. Like it's built with motion controls in mind so much that I think that is now the traditional way of playing ARMS. Like you can play with buttons, but I don't think that's necessarily the way developers intended you to play it.
Yeah, I found my punches to be a bit easier to land with buttons, but it just wasn't as accessible though, because there's so much more to work with. Because when you're playing with the Joy-Cons, literally jump and dash are your inputs, right? Whereas with the controller, you have all these buttons that do so many different things, and it doesn't come to your mind as quickly.
Mm-hmm. Talking about the modes, because that's something you haven't experienced with the Global Test Punch. You have the Grand Prix, in which you go in a series of 10 matches, and that varies from the volleyball and the hoops to the regular battles, and you work your way up to the finals. And there are 7 different difficulty settings, which every time makes it a little bit harder. You can choose whatever you like, but I usually started at 1, and then when I felt good with that character, I immediately went to 4. And it will clear then 2 or 3 for you at the same time as well. Many people told me, like, internally that they didn't necessarily thought it was fun. I had a lot of fun with playing the Grand Prix. Mostly because it had a real sense of progression there. It was fun to play. The length of the 10 matches felt right, and it ended exactly the way it should end. And next to that, you can play all of those modes separately in the versus option. Mm-hmm. There's naturally the party mode, which we got a preview of during the Global Test Punch. You just play random matches with all the modes available, and you cycle through them and score coins that way, which you can unlock more arms with. They can also make friend rooms, and the friend rooms work exactly the same, and even then the coins still count to your total, which is fantastic compared to Mario Kart.
Yeah, that's great.
And finally, there's ranked battles, which I don't necessarily had a chance to try, because somehow I didn't want to connect certain people with one another. So sadly, that's something I will need to try later. That will likely come at another point. But overall, it's not a fast, major, big package, but it was pretty okay with the amount of content there. I had 10 fighters, I had 10 stages. The only character that I didn't really enjoy was Helix, and for the rest of the characters had strengths and weaknesses that I found super engaging.
Feel free to disagree here, but I thought the online was the best online experience I've ever had in a fighter.
Yes, I absolutely agree. That's why
the interface is beautiful. I didn't have an instance of lag. It was just flawless.
Yeah, that's why I still just really liked it, It feels weird to say, absolutely. But there's no doubt in my mind that I just had fun at every single step of the way with that game.
And how weird is it to say Nintendo have made a great online interface?
It feels really weird, Yeah. But everything about it just felt right to me. And naturally, the mileage of other people will be different. I cannot disagree with that for one bit. Some people will find more enjoyment out of certain modes than others. Some other people will find some modes totally throwaway. I just overall had a really good time just playing arms whatever I was doing. And from me, I mean, it might be unique to the experience of somebody else. I can't really speak for other people naturally. But once again, it's next to Zelda, it's one of the most compelling arguments why you likely should have a Switch now at this point. Maybe Splatoon will be the next step that will add to that. We'll have to see. But ARMS, I just felt was fantastic.
It's a console-defying experience for sure. Like for me, the things that stand out with the Switch is probably leaving the Shrine of Resurrection in Breath of the Wild and going into the open world, and throw my first punch in ARMS.
Yeah,
it works so well, and it's so fun. And I've played, I think, every round of the test punch. I didn't miss one.
That's great. Yeah,
you just want to keep playing. It's just a game that you don't want to stop playing.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
And fighters typically don't really have a meaty single player. And I'm not entirely sure if that's true with ARMS either, but typically speaking, Street Fighter has arcade mode, and that's kind of it. Smash Bros has classic mode, sometimes adventure mode. They're not really that meaty. So how do you think ARMS do you think it stands up single player wise compared to those?
It feels somewhere in the middle between that and, say, a King of Fighters or Tekken, because those do have a single player mode. Mm-hmm. It sits firm between them. Like, it does have a single player mode. It just doesn't go all that deep. But it gives you background of the characters in just with text and a weird voice that Biff has in game. It doesn't really have a real voice, just real weird gibberish like an Animal Crossing game or something. And you just learn so much about the background of that world and those characters. And I just had fun, like, reading it, exploring it, just playing it. And there are really neat touches in the stages too, if you know where to look. So overall, I just had a really good time with that game. Like, overall, it's just a really good time.
It's a game you have to get your hands on, really. And hopefully, listeners have played the test punch. But, like, when I first saw ARMS, I didn't really know what to make of it. Like, that initial trailer, I don't think was that good. It seemed very slow. Like, it seemed like every single player was missing their punches, and
right. I can also not disagree with the people who said after playing all the rounds of the test punch, I think I played enough, I don't need to play the game anymore. I can see that. Like, you played most of the modes that are available in that game, but considering you can play those modes forever with online, with a bunch of friends, locally, what have you, that's way more enticing. Because once you get in online with people you actually know, I think it will get a lot more competitive than you had during the test punch.
For sure. It's just, I think it's a new classic. It's what's going to define the Switch. Maybe just for this year, maybe for the entire system. Yeah,
it depends on the updates it gets afterwards. Like,
right, because there's going to be content updates like Splatoon.
Yep. Once the content updates are coming, that will define what for game it ends up being. It will likely need a few more modes to be fully fleshed out. Mm-hmm. But overall, right now, the only two really grabs that I have is that I don't like Helix and that I find the button controls a bit naff. So if those are my biggest complaints, what is there really to complain about?
I think every single character, and I think I agree with Helix, but every single character is pretty magnificent. Like, this isn't Nintendo's usual character design.
Sure, yeah. And I will totally also see that some people might be a lot better with Helix than I give it credit for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Helix. My favourites are probably Min Min, probably Twintel too. I like her a lot. Yeah, I think I like all the women in that game.
I like all the characters. Just the only one I don't like is Helix. Because you can, I don't see the strengths all that much there. Like with Ninjara, it's the constant teleporting around. With Kid Cobra, it's fast dashing. With Ribbon Girl, it's her double jump. Right. With Springman, it's the fact that when your health is low, your punches are always charged. Like, every single character has their strengths and weaknesses. The only character that I don't really see that clearly as much is with Helix, because his movement is weird, it feels a little bit wonky, I can't get the feel of him right. So he is the only character that right now I can't really see myself playing all that much more.
Yeah, it definitely depends on your playstyle. I think some people will connect with Helix. But I think in my time with the Test Punch, I didn't really have much trouble with Helix fighters.
No.
I got through them pretty easily.
I had the same in the full experience, so maybe with, like, everybody has a full unlocked set of arms, maybe you will get more mileage then. But for right now, I just don't feel it. So yeah, that's ARMS then. Hopefully you'll pick it up immediately after E3, everybody.
Yep, the day after.
That is so weird. That's so weird.
Do you reckon they're going to include it in the showcase at all?
No, of course not.
I mean, they could do like a content update trailer or something, but I just want to get my hands on it.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to get my arms on it.
So put your lengthy arms to the test and grab it from that game store. Anyway, thanks for listening, guys. Hopefully you had a nice hour with us. I want to thank John for joining me.
No problem, Daan.
Where can people find you?
I'm on the internet. You can go on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
On the internet machine. If you go onto youtube.com/NomComms, you can find my channel where I review a bunch of Nintendo games, primarily the Switch.
What?
Yeah, I know. Oh, no one does that. I'm also on Twitter @NomComms, where I tweet about things.
Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter on the internet.
I am on Twitter as well @Nintendaan. That's NANTENDAAN. You can also find me on YouTube, Go Nintendo, Nintendo Force Magazine, Nintendo World Report, and a whole bunch of other places more. But for now, I wish you all a good day, morning, or evening whenever you're listening to this. Bye bye.